morning, good afternoon, and good evening to a few of you. Welcome to today's community briefing. It's April 21st, 2022, and we're happy you're joining us today. Our guest is Brenda Ross-Dulan, and she's going to be sharing with us some wonderful information about business and how that can impact the community. So stay tuned. We're going to have a really, as Ed Sullivan say, a really big show. My name is Gregory Sneed. The name of my company is Lifesaver Financial Services, where I help my clients keep more of the money that they make. And I do that through life insurance, literacy training, financial literacy training. Actually, state of California now is changing it to financial capability. So it's not just to be literate, but to be capable. So that is, there's a couple of assembly bills that are trying to introduce that into the actually, there was a vote yesterday. I don't know how it went, but to incorporate financial literacy into the school programs. But it's very, very important to learn that. And as Crystal knows, because she also provides background and training on accounting and accounting systems and financial literacy. This is also Financial Literacy Month of April. So it's very important for you to have a good understanding and get on a first name basis with your money, because I believe that when you feel better about your money, you feel better about your life. If you'd like to feel better about your money, I'll have some information in the chat and we can have a conversation so you and your money can be reunited. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce the queen of our community briefing, Miss Crystal Mitchell.
Thank you, Greg. I love to feel better about my money. And when my money's kind of funny, I'm not a very happy person. I try to stay to myself during that time. And so you're absolutely right. Welcome, everyone, to the community briefing. My name is Crystal Mitchell, and I am the co-director of Recycling Black Dollars. I also own my own coaching practice, Mitchell Business Solutions. I provide resources and services and mentorship for small business owners to make sure and help them with the success of and the growth of their business. This platform is here for all of us. One, to meet those in our community that are doing amazing things to make a better place for our small business community and for our community, as well as a network platform for our businesses, and so that you can get information firsthand and be able to act on it in a timely manner. And so media, I believe, for our community is the next strongest step for us to create unity. And so, as all of you all know, my utopia is one day all Black people will work together and be one united voice. I hope it happens before I leave this planet, but I am trying my best to make sure that it does. We want to welcome all of you that are coming out. We have Miss Sarah Harris on today. Welcome, Sarah. And everyone that's been a regular follower of the community briefing. Again, this is your platform. This platform is sponsored and empowered by Recycling Black Dollars and the Black Business Association, the BBA. So we want to welcome you here. Also check out my other podcast, The Business Zone with Crystal and Gilbert. We broadcast live every Friday afternoon. We go in deeper detail for about an hour and a half on how to run your business and to meet some of our business owners. So with that, I want to thank you all for coming. And Mr. Greg, I am going to turn it back over. Our team, not all of them are here, is Miss Robin Billups. She is in Kansas City. Her mom passed a week or so ago, or 2 weeks ago. So
St. Louis.
St. Louis. I'm sorry, St. Louis. She is attending her mom's homegoing, and so blessings and prayers to her family. They all need you guys. And Mr. Stephen Turner, though he's our other fourth team member, and I don't know if he's traveling today, but hey, Stephen, and I'm back to you, Greg.
I got a text from Stephen. He's going to be joining us at 11:30.
Okay.
Yeah, and Miss Robin Billups, yes, prayers to you and your family and the homegoing your mom. She did get a chance to go back prior to that and spend some quality time. That's always special, to spend time with family. If your parents are still alive, hug and kiss them, and it's just, this is a wonderful thing. Anyway. So today our guest is Brenda Ross-Dulan. And as some of you know, sometimes I start from what they're doing now and I go back to their beginning. I think today I'm going to start from the beginning and go to where she is now. So Brenda just shared with us that she was born and raised, I think, in the Miami and Atlanta area.
Yes.
And she went to the historically black college of Howard University in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And then from there, she transited to New York City and worked there a couple jobs and was just sharing her indoctrination to New York City. And we were talking briefly about Harlem. And so then she came out to Los Angeles sometime in the mid 80s. She was working with First Interstate Bank. You gotta remember that First Interstate Bank, and she was in credit analysis and corporate banking group. She then left there and went to Wells Fargo, where she spent a long time at Wells Fargo. How long were you there? Well, 24 years. At Wells Fargo, number of positions there, ending up as being an executive vice president and region president for the southern New Jersey. So she left the LA area. Looks like you were in LA and then LA San Gabriel Valley and then New Jersey. And then she's now has her own company called the Ross-Dulan Group. And she's the chief executive officer and thought leader of a boutique, diverse, woman-owned strategy consulting firm that's designed for CEOs and executives to help them make better quality decisions. And that leads to actions driving long-term success. She's passionate about that, and she's going to be sharing some wonderful information, what that means, what that is, and how you can hopefully have some takeaways with that. So now, without further delay, it's my pleasure to bring to the virtual stage is Brenda Ross-Dulan.
Thank you so much, Greg. It makes me really happy. I almost feel like I'm back in Hollywood. And thank you so much for that nice introduction. I really do appreciate the opportunity to speak to all of you. I was honestly quite thrilled to know that Recycling Black Dollars was a sponsor of the community briefing. I do remember and actually had a chance to work with the founder of Recycling Black Dollars, Mohammed Nasruddin, and absolutely adored him. He was a man of complete passion and worked tirelessly for the community. And I was actually thrilled after talking to Crystal right before we started the program that Jackie B is still there, really, I would say, toiling and really continuing to make a difference in the lives. So please tell Jackie I said hi.
I certainly will.
And of course, the BBA, Skip Cooper, worked really closely with Skip. Rumor has it that Skip is actually retiring. That's what I hear. So I want an invitation to that retirement party. I will absolutely be there. So please make sure that you send one to me. So let me say first, congratulations and thank you really to the mastermind of this extraordinary effort, Crystal, for really bringing us all together. And of course, to this incredible team of Steve and Greg. And Greg and I got a chance to really, as they say, kick it before the call started. And then, of course, to my dear friend, Robin Billups, I certainly send my condolences to her and her family during the loss of her mom. It's interesting, after so many years of my being on the East Coast, she and I actually reconnected when I clicked on a link to a community briefing, and lo and behold, I saw her talking. And, and after many years, the community briefing actually reconnected us, and I'm really grateful to her. She is an absolute jewel and a real inspiration. I really feel like this is homecoming for me. I love LA. I spent over 20 years in LA. I was actively involved in the community there. I was a member of First AME Church, and I was the person who was, I would say, the organizer of the effort to bring the first round of funding that led to the construction of the West Angeles Cathedral, and also was privileged to be at Wells Fargo or First Interstate when we made the investment of $5 million many years ago into what was Family Savings Bank. So I have lots of really fond memories being in LA, and it's still very much connected. Thank God I still have property there. Thank God I still have connections and clients. And more importantly, my kids were born and raised there. My daughter has since moved to Atlanta. My son still lives in LA, and he did something really miraculous 6 months ago. He made me a grandmother. So I'm very pleased. I'm going to really jump right into the conversation. I want to try to stick to my script. I was given strict instructions about just really, I want to make sure that you get the information that is important to you. So I'm really tremendously grateful for the opportunity. I thought I'd start really with just a conversation rather than sending you through a series of slides. And I will at some point invite you later to visit the website where you'll get specific information. But what I really would hope to do is to give you a little bit of information about me. For those of you that don't already know me, from what I understand from Crystal, I'm a legend in LA. I will hold on to that. and a little bit of clarity around what my company does. Why consulting is actually important, and what specific unique position my company actually plays in the consulting space. And then how do you actually engage with us? So as Greg mentioned, I am the managing principal of the Ross-Dulan Group. We are a boutique, diverse, woman-owned strategy consulting firm. I emphasize the word boutique because we do not compete with the large consulting firms like the McKinseys and Company and the Bains. We are a smaller consulting, but more intimate firm. We think that is the type of approach that works best for our clients, that allow us to build a rapport with them, build credibility that ultimately leads to the kind of trust that makes them open to the advice that we offer. Our clients engage with the senior team, with myself. While we may have analysts that may work on your project, your point of contact will not be the analyst. And we really specifically focus on more personalized service, more tailored around the personality and the dynamics of the company. And I think in a world where we are really looking for sound bites, how do you really describe what it is you do? And most people will describe us as executive coaches. I like to think of us in a much broader perspective as being coaching being one aspect of it, that we are an advisory firm. And as strategic advisors, we specifically focus on CEOs and executives to really help them solve what they believe are their toughest business challenges, and examine those things that challenge them today around their success, but ultimately could compromise their success going forward. So more specifically, if you were to think about it in sort of categories, it would be executive coaching and advisory work. It would be board development and board effectiveness. One of the trends that we're seeing in the consulting world just across the board is that for-profit, publicly traded, privately held companies, as well as nonprofits, are really examining whether or not their boards are doing the work that they need to do, that they're actually as effective as they need to be. That is a specialty of ours, more specifically on the nonprofit side. Succession planning, who is the next leader? particularly an Achilles heel for nonprofits. In the for-profit world, most companies really have a process at the publicly traded, but in the sort of in that smaller family-owned business, you know, is Uncle Joe, is my son, who is going to be that next leader. And then we kind of just help you through tough business decisions, teams and growth, and of course, crisis management. The focus really is around current and long-term success. But I will tell you this, there's a saying that goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I would like to think about in the consulting world that if it ain't broke, it eventually will be. And that is because business dynamics change, leadership change, markets change, constituents change, priorities of your stakeholders change. And therefore, it is an evolving and a dynamic decision-making process. And that when we consult, it is about us making those decisions that help you not be successful today, but to have sustained success. So I'm going to give you a really quick example that might mean something to most of you, and I know it does to me. So I know most of us probably follow the market, and you know that Netflix has been taking a bit of a beating in the markets lately. And if I were to ask everybody who has a Netflix account to raise their hand, let me see. And how many of you share your Netflix account with a family member? Oh, you don't have to sign up. You can just use my password. So I'm not sure.
Does my wife count as that?
Whose account is that? It works, right? So, but Netflix really grew, as you know, quite a bit during the pandemic. They were estimating that they would grow about 2 million subscribers. This last reporting period, they actually lost 200,000 subscribers. That led to a quick decline in their stock price. I would say something to the tune of over 60% decline. It sent shockwaves through the overall streaming industry, if that is sort of a kind of a sub part of the sort of the tech world. There were many questions about what's going on at Netflix. You know, were they really doing it right? Did they anticipate competition? Did they overestimate the impact of the pandemic with respect to their growth? That nobody really knows the answer to that, and nobody knows whether they will ever recover and what the sort of adjustment will be. I think there are probably lots of opportunities to adjust their strategy. That is a sort of bigger, more public kind of example of when you look at if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and what kind of implications you can have from that. And I'm not, again, this is me surmising that they weren't really sort of staying in touch with that. More specifically, with one of my clients who's trying to get ahead of that, she recently contracted with us to say, I see some trends in the real estate industry, particularly around technology and competition, that I think may start to impact me. Can you do some research for me to figure out what those trends are? What is that business model? And what do I need to do to remain competitive? So my thought here is that there are things that we have to do to, again, make sure that consulting isn't just about the house is burning down, let's call the fire department, right? But that we really are being proactive and really thinking from a long-term perspective, what leads to sustainable growth? And that sustainable growth really requires an ongoing analysis and engagement around what works as a company. I will say that the research tells us that the best performing companies are companies that engage consultants.
Mm.
And those are companies that engage consultants, not just to fix things, but to enhance, to prevent, to grow, sort of anticipating where things are going. So specific to the Ross-Dulan Group, our focus is very, very specific. And that is, our mission is to transform companies by transforming decision makers. Our focus is specifically around the decision maker and the challenges they have around making the right kinds of decisions for themselves and for their company. So the target is, so I would refer to us as sort of really quickly as the CEO whisperers, if you will.
I like that.
Our sweet spot is specifically around the decision makers and either in public or private companies. We've worked with elected officials and nonprofit leaders because we believe that the decision maker is critical to the health, culture, priorities, and success of a company. We believe that the quality of their decisions can either cripple a company or make it thrive. We believe that the CEO is a lonely individual, and the CEO and the decision maker is quite lonely, right?
Mhm.
People admire them for their leadership. They want their vulnerability, but they don't have room or tolerance for their failure. So in many instances, you've got these people who exude a lot of confidence, who quietly have their stomachs churning because there's nobody that they can trust. There's nobody that will give them honest feedback, even amongst their closest peers, right? Their leadership team. So how do you get independent perspective about what's really, whether or not my ideas are really good ones, and how do I know what I'm doing is in line with what is going on with the trends? That's why consulting becomes important. I'll tell you, I've had a chance to work with religious leaders, lots of pastors. They are business leaders, C-suite executives, myself, when I moved from Los Angeles to New Jersey. And these are executives who are charged with moving to new markets, moving to new experiences, and really having to make change. And one of the things that I've learned, there are a couple of things that come out of this sort of leadership moving into new areas. The idea of dealing with friction from new teams, changing of cultures, shifting of priorities. What are the new metrics that we need to do? And so this person who's feeling somewhat isolated really does need the kind of support to stay effective. So in our role, we serve as an independent analyst, providing independent perspective and a metrics for success. I'll say a couple of quick things. We believe also that the advice that CEOs get and decision makers get are best come from those people who have sat in the seat. I cannot tell you how many executive coaches I've had who, and this is probably, I want to try to be politically correct. So like, it's like, you know, you're in, those of you that have had kids, you will understand this. You're in there, you're in labor, you're pushing, and your partner, your significant other is saying, will you just focus, right? They're giving you strategy that they have no idea what you've gone through. And in theory, that's what they taught you in Lamar's class. But when you are actually the person who's had to deal with the anxiety of having to make the tough decision, you understand that those decisions are not just intellectual, they are quite emotional, and people who've sat in that seat actually are better at that. So I've actually been in financial services. For 25 years, I was joking with Crystal and Greg about being somewhat analytical, grew up, actually went to school to be an actuary. As geeky as they get, I usually don't tell that at 11:25 in the afternoon. But I've gone through several mergers, integrations. I've turned around businesses. I've seen people cry. I've seen people fail. I've seen companies struggle to regain their footing in the marketplace. Leaders who have to dig themselves up and then have a sense of resilience. It is understanding what that Achilles heel is and what drives them that actually, in addition to the specific strategies that help. So with decades of experience in engaging in what I believe is rigorous, complex, and challenging decision-making, we help leaders navigate through periods of challenge and change. We're not just executive coaches. We've sat in the seat, we created the vision, we created the culture. And of course, again, we blend the intellectual and the emotional piece of it. Our subject matter expertise is not industry specific. It really is about this sort of dynamic and effective approach to business, understanding business, understanding the movement of the impact of markets. And so what's unique about us is that we are independent, we are unbiased, we are open, we are frank. We are not one of those consultants that will tell you what you want to hear. I've actually even had clients that after doing an assessment, reviewing materials, getting ready to give the results, that essentially says, oh, you know, we don't want to reveal this part of it, and we're not going to share that. And this is not what we're going to do. So I said, well, that is definitely your prerogative, but my focus is around the integrity of this process and making sure that we are bringing to bear everyone's voice. So perhaps the Ross-Dulan Group isn't the right consulting firm for you. So the courage and understanding that sometimes you have to say that, but also understanding that some of that could be how do you walk them through and get them comfortable with how you release the information. We work with large companies, mostly around executive coaching. The head of HR will say, Brenda, I'd like to get her ready for the next level, groom her for new territory. She needs to think more strategically. Kind of want to get executive coaching not to have this stigma of something's wrong with you and therefore I need to fix you and therefore I'm going to get you a coach. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of executives don't like them. Mid-sized companies, it's usually emerging trends. I got too much on my plate. I can't really do all of the stuff that I have. I don't have the expertise. By the way, Uncle Joe runs the XYZ department and he's really doing a really bad job. Can you tell Uncle Joe he's doing a bad job? So it's sort of that independent perspective. So I will say, and then in the small companies where they generally struggle sometimes, they understand the value of consulting, but are always trying to balance, do I spend money? How do I spend money on this, right? How much time do I spend on this? So what we did during the pandemic is we did create a virtual strategy session where you can click online on our website and go on and say, I want to spend an hour with you. Let's talk about this. If you think that there's an opportunity to expand the discussion, to broaden the scope of the project, we're actually able to do that. So I'm going to close by saying, for me, life is always about a mission. This company is, I believe, an extension of my own personal mission. And I call my own calling, and that is, how do you make a difference in other people's lives and leave them better off? People don't remember what projects you funded. They don't remember a lot of this, but they do remember that at some point you cared. At some point, you made a difference in something that was really important to them. And so at the end of the day, we are effective as a company when we change the lives of those who ultimately are charged with changing and running these companies, because that's ultimately what they want to do. And with that, I will close.
That is awesome. Greg, you want to kick off the first question? Awesome information.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was fantastic. So I think you touched on it a little bit, but I really wanted to focus on what advice or strategies or what some of the key things that businesses need to take into consideration that we're coming out of COVID. We're going into what I would call a new normal, and we're not ever going back to what we knew to be normal.
Mm-hmm. What do they need to take into consideration?
Yeah. In other words, what's some of the key advice or things for obviously companies that you're working with and also small business owners? What are some of the key things that need to be focusing on? Shifting from the way things used to be and the way things are heading.
Yeah, I'm going to probably go back to something that's going to sound like a generic response. And during the pandemic, a lot of the questions that we had around the anxiety that people had in their businesses, should I keep my business going, had everything to do with what is my belief in the purpose of my business? Am I really committed to the mission of my business? And so we had to get the businesses to come back and say, well, is this something that I really want to do? Am I passionate about it? What ultimately is the impact of that business? First question. Second one is there a market? Is there demand for what it is I'm doing? Because many of the businesses continue to stay afloat because they did get money. And in fact, they got money, but they were not essentially continuing to generate revenue. I would say the third thing is really looking at stepping back and understanding the trends and how do you continue to acquire clients in this arena. And if I continue, is there still demand for my company in this? And what technology changes do I need to make in order to meet the demand? Because if this is something that I think is important, if I think that there's demand for it, so there are lots of companies that were failing, quite frankly, before the pandemic. They just got worse with the pandemic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we have to start to have these sober conversations about whether or not there is demand for what I'm doing. And if I see purpose in what I'm doing, and then how do I then survive? What technology do I need? What people do I need? What opportunities do I see going forward?
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
There's another one here is how do you advise clients about the rules around employee versus consultant and compliance with state regulations on that matter?
I'm not sure I really fully understand.
So a company has a choice of bringing somebody on as an employee, or versus a independent contractor, paying them a 1099. Are you involved in discussions with that? That came from Michael. Am I positioning your question properly, Michael?
Yes, absolutely. So to make sure that they follow the new guidance from the state that came out a couple years ago, so that folks are not hiding from paying folks salaries and benefits and all that and hire a consultant, which is against the law. And so I'm wondering if you give advice to potential clients around that matter.
I don't, so I have to admit, I'm not specifically familiar with what that rule is in California. My big advice to clients is be legal, follow the rules. And so if the guidelines say that, so I had an example of someone, I was thinking of bringing in a consultant, actually as a marketing person into my firm as an employee. There was a question as to whether or not she was working as an independent contractor. Basically, I give her an assignment and she goes off and she does whatever she wants to do, right? The other question is, do I bring her on as an employee because everything that is specific to what she's doing actually is directed by me, that I don't just give, and that she does not have free reign. That really generally, sort of broadly speaking, is the difference between a consultant and an employee. And then, of course, you actually have to then comply with the rules around that. So if you want someone to be a consultant for which you don't really have the financial wherewithal to manage that, then you need to talk through with your financial person around what the economics are. And then you need to structure the job in such a way that you bring them on in compliance with the law.
Next question was kind of similar to that. Just the major challenges. Probably, I think she might have been responding to you, Richard, but you see something in the chat there. So the question I have is.
Yeah, Greg, let me just mention this. So I will tell you, one of the things that consultants did face is when companies, even the larger companies, all of our consulting contracts were a bit in limbo during COVID because clients had to figure out, do I keep my employees on or do I bring in this consultant, right? And not only were small companies looking at making decisions based on survival, the larger companies were not thinking about survival. They were thinking about priorities, right? They were looking at, I've got a bucket of cash. I know I'm going to survive, but do I want to bring on Brenda to look at something next year when I don't know what next year looks like? Or do I keep on the employees that I have? Stability in my workforce, engagement around the team, some support that the company is really supporting the employees, or do I go out and bring this consultant? Many consultants really suffered during that time when companies were making those choices. So I'm hoping I answered the gentleman's question before.
Next question.
I think so.
One more, Crystal, and then to what extent are companies reaching out or asking for some guidance in the way of ethics? There's things that are legal and there are things that are ethical. And I see that a lot of companies that are thriving are doing things from a more ethical standpoint. The roots of business were very the snake oil, and you were trying to get over on somebody and selling ice to an Eskimo, that kind of thing. But I think ethics are creeping in to things. I mean, doing something legal versus ethical. A lot of companies are having employees at less than 30 hours, 28 hours, 27 hours, 29 hours. So they're below the threshold where they've got to provide them benefits. So are companies reaching out to you in help for ethics?
They're not. So I will say, in it as it relates to HR related issues, it is not a specialty of ours. And that is how many hours someone should work. When companies do reach out to us, we do have a priority around ensuring that the company is tied to their purpose. So there's a philosophy of our company that is companies and decision makers who make great leaders are those that are tied to a higher purpose. We always have a conversation with every single leader. So this is I'm actually glad you asked this question. There's always a conversation with every single leader around why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you in this space? This isn't just about making money. I had a client who said to me, well, I just want to make sure that this company is successful. I said, but why is it important that you make money? Why are you in this space in the first place? I don't really have like a real reason why I'm in this space. And it turns out she was in the space because it was something that was important to her because of her grandmother, because of some charge her grandmother gave her. So every company has to tie back to a higher purpose. Anyone who moves forward with a strategy, with an action plan that is not tied to a greater good, a higher purpose, will, number one, not be able to figure out what the protocol should be that align with that, and two, will not be able to sustain success on a long-term basis. If I leave the room and the people in the room know why they're doing what they're doing, they may forget what step 2 is, but they ultimately know that every decision that I make is about leaving the patients that were in the same space as my grandmother in a good place, and anything that doesn't align with that. So as it relates to ethics, I would say, and I'll say this too, because this is something that really means a lot to me. Everything in my life has always been about my personal mission. Some people say, well, how did you know that? I've always known from very, very beginning, even at the time when I was this sort of, I would say, geeky person, and some would argue I still am. It was about that I was put on this earth to make a difference in the lives of others and ultimately leave them better off. And sometimes in every single situation, I don't know what that is like, but I do know that after I come in contact with you, your life should be better. And so when people talk about me, they may not always remember what they did with me, but they remember that somehow I was engaged around making them better. That has translated into how I run the business. Leaders who have long-term sustainability are the ones who really believe in making a difference, connecting to a higher purpose. I don't advise clients who are trying to be slippery. That ultimately, that's not the kind of client we're looking for. We're looking for people who are ultimately trying to do something more than make money.
I think that's excellent, Brenda. In today's where when everybody becomes very focused in on the money part, but going back to the very beginning when you first started, your idea surfaced in your head on this is the business I want to create. You had a greater reason for doing that, right? Mm-hmm. And I think even when we've been in business for a very long time, we have to go back to look back at that original business plan and see what our mission and our vision was for that, and see if we're still in line with that. Doesn't mean that we can't modernize our business, but the original purpose has to be there. I have another question along that same line. Is I was reading an article the other day, and I like what you said. Don't be slippery, right? Be transparent, because I was reading an article where, because of this great resignation, that our business owners or our CEOs don't understand that it's not about the money. It's about work culture. It's about being happy in a balanced type of work world while you're making money, right? And so now they're saying, okay, we're doing remote business. We advertise remote business, but then when we get there, we say remote takes place after 7:00 at night. That's not being transparent.
No, it isn't.
Right. And so when we look at today's world, going forward with all of the things that's happening, the supply chain problems, how does a business owner get beyond this, and at the same with a strategy that's going to take them into the next 5-10 years of their business?
So I do think that that may be an individual discussion.
Yeah.
For which people like me are employed.
Yes, that's true.
So, and it will be different for each leader, but I cannot stress enough. So I'm about to write this article, and you guys will get a preview of it, and it's called The Slow Evolution of the Corporate Culture, or the slow erosion of the corporate culture. I intended to do this. I started off having a focus on doing X, Y, and Z. I saw a big opportunity in the market, so I started building strategies to acquire that opportunity. Each time I built strategies, I didn't go back to see whether those strategies continued to align with my purpose, either intentionally or unintentionally. Culture is built from a repetition of activities and behaviors, whether intentional or not. So when you're working with a client, you remind them of what their purpose is. You remind them of what comes out of that. I want to be the best, I don't know, wellness coach. In order to do that, I've got to talk to people in this age group, this and this. And then how do I do that? I've got to hire, so many employees in this group and that group. And then I've got to give them a goal to do X, Y, and Z, and I got to show them how to do it. As long as they stay connected to why they're doing what they're doing, then all of a sudden you say, well, you know what? The goals this time are just a little bit, I'm not sure they really align. So are they going to get a different impression about what I should be doing? Are they going to start to think that it's okay? Will they get into that slippery route, right? Because now I haven't continued to revisit whether my actions align with my intent. I had a woman who said to me the other day, she said, well, I didn't intend to do that. I said, but intention and impact are two different things. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, but I did. Right? So there's an alignment and a deliberate alignment of actions is what keeps corporate culture. It is also, to your point, is what keeps the team or the employees knowing that you care about them, as opposed to just getting the work done, revisiting it. And that's a hard thing for companies, because I'll tell you this, what makes a lot of companies successful is I know what makes me successful. I know what my purpose is. I know what the rubric is for success. I know what the activities are, and I do that. And because I'm really good at that routine of doing that over and over again, I get really good at that and I get consistent results. What happens is, as I talked about before, is business dynamics change, the market changes. My perception of what I'm doing is very different but from somebody else. And I don't change that. I don't revisit it. I don't have a process to continue to revisit whether my intention aligns with my activities. Everything else is going on, and all of a sudden we're in a slippery slope. That's what is happening with the Great Resignation. That is what's happening with companies that are kind of on the edge. Some of them intended to be there. Some of them just accidentally got there.
Yeah, that's part of what I was driving at with the intention of, it wasn't so much from an HR standpoint, but it was just the culture of, makes a decision, can I do the right thing for my employees, or do the right thing for my clients and customers, or what's going to make me more money? Because you're going to have a decision point. There's a fork in the road where something is going to be good for the client, going to be good for my employees, but if I don't do that, I make more money.
Well, I will tell you this, that in the moment, it isn't always a clear. The decision isn't clear. And how do you? One of the things we talk to our clients about is blind spots. One of the big problems is I see what I see, but I don't see what you see. I don't see it from your perspective. I see, if I say, someone once said, oh, I'm not hiring African Americans or Hispanic employees or people of color because I don't see any in that arena. Or here's the other thing. I'm hiring these people who happen not to be people of color because I trust them, because I have a history with them. The unintended message of that is I don't have a history with people who aren't like me. So we got to think about that opposite side of the question, and we got to think about the unintended consequences of what we're saying, and that every leader needs to understand that there are blind spots. I'll say this really quickly, because I know you got a lot of questions, but have you ever gone into, and those of you who are in marketing and ever been in the entertainment, we'll be sitting down, we're all watching TV. There's this commercial that comes on. Everybody cringes. How in the world did they release that? That was crazy. Did you see what that looked like? Who was in the room when they made that decision? Blind spots. So decision-making is a constant, it's a dynamic, and it's recognizing that as a decision maker, I'm not the one who has all the information. So I've got to build a process by which I'm always asking for what I don't see, anticipating what could be ahead, and constantly making those adjustments, but making them in such a way that it doesn't feel so disruptive that then I'm not effective, because that repetition actually is what brings you consistency in your business.
I love that, because I think as CEOs and presidents and of businesses, you're so into the day-to-day operation that you can't see the bigger picture for what's happening. And so you're absolutely, I like that, the blind spots, because I know when I'm coaching my clients, I'm like, well, had you thought about this? No, I don't know how that would work. And then you kind of give them some insight, because you're looking on the inside, you're looking from the outside inside, and they're like, oh, wow, that could work. So I think CEOs and presidents and or run of their own business owners should get that consulting from the outside, because you can see something entirely different than what they're seeing, because they're in it. They're working in that business.
Yeah. But intention is so important, right?
Yeah.
So people understand that at the end of the day, you're not trying to run a slippery organization. If you build processes that say we're buttoned up, is less likely. So those processes really need to align with, if every now and then I can slip a couple of dollars here and there, and that seems to be okay, right? Then all of a sudden, maybe $10 isn't too much, maybe $20. So you got to build an environment that essentially says we're committed to this, and we are constantly revisiting whether or not what I intend to lines up with what people are actually doing.
I like that. Greg?
So, Brenda, I would at this point I would ask for your sort of 60-second wrap up and sort of commercial for the record. Who's a good client for you? How do they get in touch with you? Who's not a good client?
Yeah, consulting is a weird thing, because a lot of people think there was a guy who said, a researcher, I forget his name, is Linden. Last name is Linden. He basically says the consultants are people who borrow your watch and then tell you what time it is. So there's always this thing about, are you really adding value, right? And so for us, we believe that the success of a company is clearly tied to the decision maker. And this, for us, for clarity purpose, it isn't about, do you do succession planning? It isn't about, do you check employee retention areas? It's about, what are those decisions that are critical as a leader, and how do I help influence that? So we transform the decision makers by understanding that there's an intellectual process that they need to go to, but we need to understand emotionally what they're going through as well, to make that decision. So we transform companies, and that our focus really is around the decision maker and all of the issues that they have to deal with. Someone had asked a question about the HR specific. We will bring in someone who understands. So I didn't want to skirt his issue, and I want to be respectful of the issue. But our focus really is around strategy. I understand P&Ls. I don't know everybody's, labor laws, but we do have partnerships with those people. We need to bring them in.
Awesome.
So when you made that transition from bank executive into the second act of your life, what was some of your process? Because a lot of us think that once we end our corporate lives, that's kind of the end. But what
Right.
were some of the decision factors for you to go into becoming a consultant, as opposed to just traveling all around the world and going back and seeing your grandbaby and just enjoying life and not worrying about work ever again in life?
Oh my God. Because I felt like I still had a gift to give. It is, as I mentioned to you, I believe that my life really is about making a difference in other people's lives. And I believe that we're at our best when we're leveraging that gift. I can't be Crystal. Crystal can't be me. I just had a new minister a new pastor, and he said, you know what? I may not be the best pastor. I may not be the best preacher, but I'm just giving you what God gave me. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say, arguably, he is an amazing minister, but I'm always at my best when I'm leveraging the gifts that I've been given. And I believe that I still have runway. I'm still very active. So that's why I'm actually on 2 corporate boards now. I'm on a board of an insurance company, was my first sort of paid corporate board. I also am on the board of a private equity firm out of Chicago that, again, is focused on how do we get investments into minority-owned financial institutions to make sure that they have monies to give to underserved communities. So still got a lot of runway.
All right. I love it. Thank you so much, Brenda. We have learned so much from you. You're awesome. As I said, that's why you're a rock star here in Los Angeles. And even though you're on the East Coast, thank you so much. I hope you guys that are running your own businesses, you take heed of what she was discussing, and looking on the outside, not just on the inside of your business, and looking to hire someone to help you in your strategy of your business. We have Stephen Turner on. Stephen, you like to introduce yourself and tell us who's coming on next week.
Hi, thanks everyone for joining us today. Brenda Ross, great information. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Stephen Turner. I'm the principal of the Slayton Group. We're a financial service company. Next week, we have the privilege of having Cheryl Turner, Esquire, candidate for the California State Assembly, as well as on the Real Estate Commission. So next week is Cheryl Turner. Please join us on the 28th of April.
And Stephen, that's a great segue in the fact that we're leading up to our primary elections, and I cannot tell you guys how important this election is for this year. Everyone needs to go out, take that primary book that you just read, that you just received, review it, do your homework, do your due diligence, because whatever decision you make is going to affect yourself and your family and your business in the future. It is really imperative. I looked at the primary today, and the candidates for the governor, there are 13 Republicans running for that position and only 4 Democrats. Now, I can't tell you how you want to vote, but I will tell you to do your research because it is so important. The mayor, that's important, guys, that's important. So make sure you do your research and make sure the best candidate is going to be in that position. It's important. Los Angeles has a lot of social issues, a lot of crime issues, a lot of housing issues. So your vote is important. Don't ever think that it doesn't count, because it does. So that's my
website. I did put my website out. I apologize, I didn't answer that, but I put it in the chat.
Thank you very much. We so appreciate that. I want to thank everyone. We got Edwin from Lula Washington's dance studio on today. Hello, Edwin. We have Sarah Harris. I believe she's still on. She is currently the president and CEO for the BBA. And so welcome, Sarah. And we have a number of other people. I'm sure Brenda came because of you. Carmen And
That's right.
Taylor. Kevin
Hey,
Hi.
Caleb.
Brenda, Kevin Caleb's out
Oh, hi,
here. Yeah, darling, I
Kevin. Oh
will reach out
my
to you real
God.
soon.
I'm coming to the retirement party for Skip. Somebody, I think Sarah's going to give me an invitation. So
Yes, we'll make sure you
Well,
receive it. It's August 20th, everybody.
oh,
August
is it August
20th.
20th? Oh, okay.
absolutely. Congratulations to you also, Sarah.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much. I appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Reconnect time, reconnect.
All righty. So when
Nice.
Awesome show, Miss Crystal. This is
oh,
Carmen.
thank you. Thank you. Thank
Awesome
you.
show.
So it
Awesome
will be
show.
in
Great show.
Thank you, Brenda
thank you.
Ross-Dulan.
Thank you, Carmen. Thank you. It's like coming home.
Yes, and we welcome you with open arms. So guys, it's 12 o'clock. We want to thank you so much. We want to be respectful of your time. You can always find this on our it's streaming live right now on Facebook, so you can check it out there. It will be on our website, thecommunitybriefing.com, so you can go back there and also see other archive shows that are there and our upcoming guests. So have a great weekend. Do not forget to start looking at your primary election booklet. You have into June 7th to do your research, so start today. All the way down to the judges and the school board, guys. Important. So we will see you guys next week, same bat channel, 11 o'clock. And so have a great
Don't
weekend.
forget to help us with our efforts. There's a donate button on our website, and no donation is too small. $5, $10, a cup of coffee, or well, a cup of coffee now is like $5-6 now, right? $10 is the new $2, right? And 100 is the new 20, right? What used to cost you $20 now is $100.
Right.
But, yeah, we do this to bring good information to you, and appreciate your support. Y'all come back now here.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brenda. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank